the morning sun blazed across the Arizona desert like a furnace, turning the red rocks into glowing embers. Jack Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he guided his horse through the narrow canyon. He was searching for 3 missing cattle that had wandered from his ranch during the night. The canyon walls rose high on both sides, casting long shadows that provided little relief from the heat. Jack's horse, Thunder, picked his way carefully over the rocky ground. The rancher had been riding for 2 hours, following hoofprints and broken brush that marked the path of his lost animals. As Thunder rounded a bend in the canyon, Jack heard something that made him pull back on the reins. It was a sound that didn't belong in the wilderness. A soft whimpering, like someone in pain. He listened carefully, his hand moving instinctively to the rifle at his side. The sound came again, echoing off the canyon walls. It was definitely human, and it was coming from somewhere above him. Jack looked up at the rocky ledges that jutted out from the canyon walls like broken teeth. "Hello!" he called out, his voice bouncing back at him. "Is someone there?" The whimpering stopped for a moment, then resumed with more urgency. Jack dismounted and began climbing the rocky slope, leaving Thunder ground-tied below. The rocks were loose and treacherous, but Jack had grown up in these mountains and knew how to move safely over uncertain terrain. About 30 feet up, he found the source of the sounds. A young Apache woman lay trapped beneath a large boulder that had rolled down from above. Her dark hair was tangled with dust and dried blood, and her buckskin dress was torn in several places. Most alarming was her right leg, which was pinned beneath the heavy stone. The woman's dark eyes met his with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. She couldn't have been more than 20 years old, with high cheekbones and the proud bearing that Jack had learned to respect in the Apache people. Despite her obvious pain, she held herself with dignity. Jack approached slowly, his hands visible and empty. Relations between the Apache and the white settlers had been tense for years, and he knew she might be more afraid of him than grateful for his help. "I'm not going to hurt you," Jack said quietly in the few Apache words he had learned from his friend, an old scout named Pedro. The woman's eyes widened slightly in surprise at hearing her language, but she remained silent. Jack knelt beside the boulder and examined the situation. The stone was massive, probably weighing several 100 pounds. It had rolled down from the cliff face above, likely loosened by the recent heavy rains. The woman's leg was trapped at the ankle, and from the unnatural angle Jack could see it was badly broken. "How long have you been here?" Jack asked in English, hoping she might understand some of it. Many Apache spoke at least a little English from their dealings with traders and soldiers. The woman's lips were cracked and dry, her face pale beneath her natural bronze complexion. She tried to speak but only managed a hoarse whisper. Jack reached for his canteen and carefully lifted her head, allowing her to drink small sips of water. After a few moments, her voice returned. 2 days, she said in heavily accented English. Maybe 3. Hard to tell. Jack's heart sank. 2 or 3 days trapped in the desert heat without water would have killed most people. This woman was stronger than she looked, but she was clearly near the end of her endurance. "What's your name?" Jack asked, as he began examining the boulder more closely, looking for a way to move it. "Ayana," she replied. "It means eternal blossom in my language." Jack nodded. "I'm Jack Morrison. I have a ranch about 5 miles from here. I'm going to get you out of this." Ayana's eyes followed his movements as he walked around the boulder, testing it from different angles. The stone was wedged against another rock, creating a natural trap that held her leg fast. "You should leave me," Ayana said quietly. "If my people find you here, they will think you did this to me. They will kill you." Jack stopped and looked at her. "Is your band nearby?" "My brother leads a hunting party. They are looking for me." Her voice was matter-of-fact, but Jack could hear the underlying worry. "They will follow my trail here." Jack understood the implications. If a group of Apache warriors found a white man alone with their injured kinswoman, they would assume the worst. The fact that he was trying to help her might not matter to grief-stricken or angry relatives. "How much time do you think we have?" Jack asked, continuing his examination of the boulder. "My brother is a skilled tracker. He will find this place before sunset." Jack looked up at the sun. which was now approaching its zenith. That gave him perhaps 6 hours to free Ayana and get them both to safety. But the more he studied the boulder, the more hopeless the task seemed. The stone was simply too heavy for one man to move. He had rope in his saddlebags, but even if he could get Thunder up the rocky slope, which was doubtful, the horse wouldn't be able to pull at the right angle to shift the boulder. "There might be another way," Jack said, kneeling beside Ayana again. "But you're not going to like it." Ayana's dark eyes met his steadily. "Tell me." "I could try to dig the dirt and smaller rocks out from under your leg. If I can create enough space, you might be able to pull free. And if my leg is too badly damaged, if the bone is crushed." Jack hesitated. He wasn't a doctor, but he had seen his share of injuries over the years. From what he could see, Ayana's ankle was definitely broken, possibly in several places. Moving her too roughly could cause even more damage, perhaps permanent crippling. "I won't lie to you," Jack said. "It's going to hurt. A lot. And there's a chance the movement could make the break worse." Ayana closed her eyes for a moment, thinking. When she opened them again, Jack saw steely determination. "If I stay here, I will die. My leg may heal crooked, but at least I will live. Do what you must do." Jack nodded and began gathering the tools he would need. From his saddlebags, he retrieved a small folding shovel that he carried for digging water holes. He also had a skinning knife that might help him pry away some of the smaller rocks. "Before I start," Jack said, "I need to warn you about something else. This is going to be very painful. If you cry out, the sound might carry. If your brother and his warriors hear you screaming, they'll come running." Ayana understood immediately. Any sounds of distress would bring her rescue party at a dead run, assuming she was being tortured or killed. They would arrive ready for battle, and Jack would be a dead man before he could explain what he was trying to do. "I will not scream," Ayana said firmly. "Are you sure? Because once I start digging, I can't stop. If I leave the job half finished and your people arrive, we'll both be in worse trouble than we are now." Ayana reached out and grasped Jack's wrist with surprising strength. "Hurry, rancher. I won't scream. I give you my word." Jack looked into her eyes and saw something that convinced him she meant what she said. There was a core of steel in this young woman that he had rarely seen in anyone, man or woman, white or Apache. "All right," Jack said. "Let's do this." He began by carefully removing the loose stones and dirt that had accumulated around Ayana's trapped leg. The work was slow and painstaking, as he had to be careful not to cause the boulder to shift and crush her leg even more severely. As Jack worked, Ayana told him how she had come to be trapped. She had been gathering medicinal herbs in the high country when the recent rains had loosened the rocks above. She had taken shelter in this spot, thinking it was safe, when the boulder had broken free and rolled down on top of her. "I tried to move it myself at first," she said, "but it is like trying to move a mountain." Jack could see scratches on the stone where she had tried to use smaller rocks as levers. The effort had probably exhausted what little strength she had left after the initial injury. As he dug deeper, Jack began to see the full extent of the damage to Ayana's leg. The ankle was badly twisted, and there was significant swelling despite the days that had passed. But the bone didn't appear to be completely crushed, which was encouraging. "How does it feel?" Jack asked as he worked to clear more space. "Like fire," Ayana admitted, "but I have felt worse pain." Jack glanced at her face and saw the truth of that statement in her eyes. He wondered what kind of life experiences had taught such a young woman to endure such suffering in silence. The sun continued its arc across the sky as Jack worked. Sweat poured down his face and soaked his shirt, but he didn't stop to rest. Every few minutes, he would pause to let Ayana drink more water from his canteen. "Tell me about your ranch," Ayana said during one of these breaks. Jack realized she was trying to distract herself from the pain by focusing on conversation. "It's not much," Jack said. "Just me and about 200 head of cattle. I've been working it for 5 years now, ever since I got out of the cavalry." "You were a soldier?" "For a while. I fought in the war, back east, then came west with the Indian campaigns." Jack paused in his digging and looked at her. "I was never involved in any attacks on your people. if that's what you're wondering. Ayana studied his face carefully. What made you leave the army? I got tired of fighting, tired of killing. When my enlistment was up, I took my savings and bought some land. All I wanted was to raise cattle and be left alone. And yet here you are helping one of the people your former comrades would call the enemy. Jack resumed digging. I don't see an enemy here. I see someone who needs help. For the first time since he had found her, Ayana smiled slightly. You are not like most white men. How many white men have you known? Jack asked. Enough to know the difference. The conversation was interrupted by a sound that made both of them freeze. From somewhere in the distance came the call of a hawk, but Jack's experience told him it wasn't made by any bird. It was a signal, the kind Apache scouts use to communicate with each other. They are close, Ayana whispered. My brother has found my trail. Jack estimated that he had cleared about half the dirt and debris from around Ayana's leg. It might be enough to free her, but it would require significant force and would certainly cause her tremendous pain. We're going to have to try it now, Jack said urgently. I don't think I can clear enough space before they get here. Ayana nodded, her face set with determination. Do it quickly. Jack positioned himself to get the best leverage on her trapped leg. When I say now, try to pull backwards as hard as you can. Don't worry about the pain. Just focus on getting free. I understand. Jack gripped Ayana's leg just above the ankle, being as gentle as possible while still maintaining a firm hold. Ready? 1, 2. Now! He pulled while Ayana pushed backwards with her free leg. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, her trapped foot began to slide through the narrow space Jack had created. Ayana's face went white with pain, but she didn't make a sound beyond a sharp intake of breath. Her hands clawed at the rocky ground as she fought to help free herself. It's working, Jack whispered. Keep pulling! With a final agonizing effort, Ayana's foot came free. She immediately rolled away from the boulder, cradling her injured leg against her chest. Jack could see that her ankle was severely swollen and bent at an unnatural angle, but she was free. Can you move? Jack asked urgently. The hawk calls were getting closer. Ayana tried to stand, but immediately collapsed. I cannot walk. You must leave me here and save yourself. Not happening, Jack said firmly. He scooped her up in his arms, surprised by how light she was. We're getting out of here together. As Jack carried Ayana down the rocky slope toward his waiting horse, they heard the sound of approaching hoofbeats echoing through the canyon. Her brother's hunting party had found the trail and was closing in fast. Thunder stood exactly where Jack had left him, trained well enough to remain ground-tied even when nervous. The horse's ears were pricked forward, and Jack could tell the animal sensed the approaching danger. Easy, boy, Jack murmured, as he carefully lifted Ayana onto Thunder's back. The horse shifted uneasily, but held steady. The sound of hoofbeats was getting closer now, echoing off the canyon walls like thunder before a storm. Jack estimated they had maybe 2 minutes before the Apache hunting party rounded the bend and spotted them. Can you hold on? Jack asked Ayana as he swung up behind her. Yes, she replied through gritted teeth. Her injured leg hung at an awkward angle, and Jack could see the effort it took for her to remain conscious. Jack urged Thunder into motion, but the big horse couldn't move at full speed while carrying 2 riders over the rocky terrain. Every step jolted Ayana's broken ankle, and Jack felt her tense against him each time Thunder's hooves struck stone. Behind them, the hoofbeats grew louder. Jack knew they wouldn't be able to outrun mounted Apache warriors over this ground. The Apache were legendary horsemen, and they would be riding lighter, faster ponies, bred for this exact kind of terrain. There, Ayana said weakly, pointing toward a narrow side canyon that branched off to the left. That way leads to the old Spanish mine. There are many passages underground. Jack didn't hesitate. Any chance was better than being caught in the open. He guided Thunder toward the side canyon, praying the horse wouldn't stumble on the loose rocks. As they entered the narrow passage, Jack heard shouts behind them. Ayana's brother and his warriors had reached the spot where she had been trapped. The shouts grew more urgent, and Jack knew they had found the disturbed earth and realized someone had freed the trapped woman. "They will follow our tracks," Ayanna said. "But the mine has many tunnels. If we can reach it, we might lose them in the darkness." The side canyon was even narrower than the main passage, with walls so close that Jack's knees nearly scraped the rocks on both sides. Thunder was breathing hard now, laboring under the double burden and the steep climb. Ahead, Jack could see where the canyon ended in a wall of rock. Set into the stone was the dark mouth of a mine shaft, just as Ayanna had promised. Wooden timbers framed the entrance, weathered gray by decades of desert sun and wind. "The mine goes deep into the mountain," Ayanna explained as they approached. "There are 3 levels, connected by shafts and ladders. But be careful, some of the passages have collapsed." Jack dismounted and helped Ayanna down from Thunder's back. She couldn't put any weight on her injured leg, so he supported her as they approached the mine entrance. "What about Thunder?" Jack asked. "I can't leave him here for your brother to find. Drive him back toward the main canyon," Ayanna suggested. "Let him make tracks leading away from here. With luck, my brother will follow the horse and think we rode away in that direction." It was a good plan, but Jack hated to give up his horse. Thunder had been with him for 3 years, and the animal was like family, but their lives depended on misleading the Apache hunters. Jack slapped Thunder hard on the rump, sending the horse trotting back down the narrow canyon. The animal would eventually find his way home to the ranch, following the trails he knew well. "Quickly now," Ayanna urged. "They will not be fooled for long." Jack picked her up again and carried her into the mine. The darkness was complete after just a few steps, and the air smelled of dampness and old timber. Jack had a few matches in his pocket, but he was reluctant to use them unless absolutely necessary. "There should be old torches somewhere near the entrance," Ayanna said. "The miners always kept them there." Jack felt along the rough walls until his fingers found a torch set in an iron bracket. The wood was dry and would burn easily if he could get it lit. He struck one of his precious matches, and the flame revealed several more torches nearby. With the torch blazing, Jack could see they were in a tunnel that sloped downward into the mountain. The walls were reinforced with heavy timbers, and railroad tracks ran down the center of the passage where ore cars had once carried silver and gold to the surface. This mine was worked by Spanish priests centuries ago, Ayanna explained as Jack carried her deeper into the tunnel. Later, American prospectors tried to reopen it, but the ore ran out. Now it is home only to bats and snakes. As if summoned by her words, something rustled in the darkness ahead of them. Jack held the torch higher and saw dozens of bats clinging to the tunnel ceiling. They shifted restlessly in the light, but didn't take flight. Behind them, Jack heard voices echoing from the canyon outside. The Apache hunters had reached the mine entrance and were discussing what to do. Jack couldn't understand the words, but the tone was urgent and angry. "My brother's name is Naichi," Ayanna whispered. "He leads 12 warriors. They are all young men, eager to prove themselves in battle. If they find us, they will not listen to explanations." Jack nodded grimly. He had heard of young Apache warriors who saw every encounter with whites as a chance to gain honor and glory. Cooler heads might be willing to talk, but hot-blooded young men would shoot first and ask questions later. The voices outside grew louder, and Jack heard the sound of someone entering the mine tunnel behind them. A faint glow appeared on the walls, indicating that the Apache had also found torches. "Can you walk at all?" Jack asked Ayanna urgently. "A little, if you help me." Jack set her down carefully, keeping one arm around her waist to support her weight. Together they moved deeper into the mine, with Ayanna hopping on her good leg while Jack held the torch. The tunnel split into 2 passages about 50 yards from the entrance. Ayanna pointed to the left branch. "That way leads to the 2nd level. There are many side tunnels down there where we can hide." They took the left passage, which sloped more steeply downward. The air grew cooler as they descended, and Jack could hear the sound of dripping water somewhere in the darkness ahead. Behind them, the glow of pursuing torches grew brighter. The Apache were following their trail, and on the soft earth of the mine floor, their footprints would be easy to track. "Here," Ayanna said, pointing to a narrow opening in the tunnel wall. "This leads to an old shaft. It connects to other tunnels, but it is dangerous. Some of the timbers have rotted. Jack didn't hesitate. Dangerous or not, it was their only chance of losing their pursuers. He helped Ayanna through the narrow opening, then followed with the torch. They found themselves in a vertical shaft with wooden ladders leading both up and down. The timbers creaked ominously under their weight, and Jack could see that some of the rungs had broken away entirely. "Down," Ayanna whispered, "to the 3rd level. There are caves there that connect to the outside world, but we must be very quiet. Sound carries far in these shafts." The climb down was treacherous. Jack had to support Ayanna's weight while managing the torch, and several times the old ladder rungs cracked alarmingly under their combined load. Ayanna bit her lip to keep from crying out when her injured ankle bumped against the ladder. They reached the 3rd level just as voices echoed from the shaft above them. The Apache had found the side passage and were discussing whether to follow it. "They are arguing," Ayanna translated in a whisper. "Naichi wants to follow us, but some of the others think it is too dangerous. They know about the unstable timbers." Jack and Ayanna moved away from the shaft opening as quietly as possible. This level of the mine was different from the upper tunnels. The passages were rougher, carved directly from the rock without timber supports. Water dripped constantly from the ceiling, and the floor was muddy and treacherous. "The caves are this way," Ayanna whispered, pointing down a passage that seemed to lead toward natural light in the distance. They had gone perhaps 20 yards when disaster struck. A timber support beam in the shaft behind them gave way with a groaning crash. The sound echoed through the mine like a gunshot, followed by shouts of alarm from the Apache above. "The ladder," Ayanna said urgently. "It has collapsed. Now they cannot follow us down here." But Jack realized the collapse might have cut off their own escape route as well. If the shaft was blocked, they might be trapped on the 3rd level with no way back to the surface. "How well do you know these caves?" Jack asked. "I explored them as a child with other children from my village, but that was many years ago. Some passages may have changed." It wasn't encouraging, but they had no choice except to keep moving forward. Behind them, the Apache were shouting back and forth, apparently trying to find another way down to the 3rd level. The passage gradually widened as they moved away from the mine workings and into natural caves. The artificial tunnels gave way to chambers carved by water over countless centuries. Strange rock formations cast eerie shadows in the torchlight. "There," Ayanna said, pointing ahead. "Do you see that light? That is sunlight from outside." Jack could indeed see a faint glow in the distance, completely different from their flickering torch flame. It was natural daylight, which meant there was an opening to the surface somewhere ahead. But as they approached the light, Jack realized their problems were far from over. The opening was high up in the cave wall, at least 15 feet above the cave floor. Worse, it was barely large enough for a person to squeeze through. "I used to climb up there when I was small," Ayanna said. "But with my leg." Jack studied the rock wall carefully. There were enough handholds and ledges for an experienced climber to reach the opening, but it would be impossible for someone with a broken ankle. "I could climb up and go for help," Jack suggested. "My ranch hands could come back with ropes and equipment." "No," Ayanna said firmly. "If you leave me here and my brother finds this cave, he will think you kidnapped me and abandoned me to die. He will hunt you down and kill you." Jack saw the wisdom in her words. The situation was complicated enough without adding the appearance that he had taken an Apache woman captive. "Then we wait," Jack decided. "Your ankle needs medical attention anyway. When your brother calms down and starts thinking clearly, maybe he'll be willing to listen to reason." They found a relatively dry spot near the cave wall and settled down to wait. Jack tore strips from his shirt to make a crude bandage for Ayanna's ankle, wrapping it tightly to provide some support. "Tell me about your family," Jack said, partly to keep Ayanna's mind off her pain, and partly because he was genuinely curious about her life. "My father was a war chief," Ayanna replied. "He was killed fighting the Mexican army when I was 12 years old. My mother died of fever the following winter. Since then, Naiche has been like both father and brother to me. Is that why he's so protective?" "That, and because of what happened to our cousin last year." Jack waited for her to explain. "Her name was Lena. She was captured by white soldiers during a raid on our winter camp. When we found her 3 months later, she had been— Ayana paused, searching for the right words. She had been badly used. She never spoke again, and she killed herself before the next full moon. Jack felt his stomach turn. He had heard stories about what sometimes happened to captive Apache women, and none of those stories ended well. So when Naichi sees me with a white man, Ayana continued, he will think of Lena. He will not stop to ask questions or listen to explanations. Then we need to figure out a way to convince him I'm not a threat. The only way to do that is to prove you could have harmed me but chose not to. But how can we prove something that did not happen? Jack thought about that problem as they sat in the dim cave. Outside, the light was beginning to fade, indicating that evening was approaching. Soon it would be completely dark, which would make any rescue attempt even more difficult. Maybe the answer isn't to convince your brother, Jack said slowly. Maybe the answer is to convince your people that I saved your life instead of threatening it. What do you mean? What if we could get word to your village, to the elders or the chief? Someone with authority who might be willing to listen to both sides of the story? Ayana considered this. My grandfather is still alive. He's very old, but he is respected by all the people. If he spoke for you, even Naichi would have to listen. How could we contact him? There is a trading post at Willow Creek, about 10 miles from here. The trader there, a man called Martinez, sometimes carries messages between our people and the outside world. If you could get word to him, that's assuming I can get out of here and reach the trading post, Jack pointed out, and that your grandfather would be willing to help a stranger.
He might, Ayana said thoughtfully.
My grandfather believes in the old ways, when Apache and white men sometimes lived in peace. He has said many times that not all conflicts must be settled with blood. It was a slim hope, but it was better than no hope at all. Jack began studying the rock wall again, looking for a route to the opening above them. As he examined the handholds, a new sound reached them from the tunnel behind them. It was the sound of many voices, and they were getting closer. They have found another way down, Ayana said with alarm. We must hide. But there was nowhere to hide in the open cave. The torchlight would give them away immediately, but if Jack extinguished it, they would be trapped in complete darkness. Blow out the torch, Ayana said urgently. I know these caves well enough to move in the dark. Jack hesitated for just a moment, then extinguished the flame. Immediately, they were plunged into absolute blackness. The darkness in the cave was complete and overwhelming. Jack had experienced dark nights on the open range, but this was different. A blackness so thick it seemed to have weight and substance. He couldn't see his own hand in front of his face. This way, Ayana whispered, her voice barely audible. There is a passage behind those rocks. Very narrow, but it leads to another chamber. Jack felt her hand grasp his arm, guiding him through the darkness. Her knowledge of these caves from childhood was their only hope now. He moved carefully, trying not to make any noise that might give away their location. Behind them, the voices grew louder. Jack could see the glow of torches beginning to illuminate the main cave chamber. In moments, the Apache search party would be where Jack and Ayana had been sitting just minutes before. The narrow passage Ayana led him to was barely wide enough for Jack's shoulders. He had to turn sideways and shuffle along, feeling his way by touch. Ayana moved ahead of him with surprising agility despite her injured ankle, her years of childhood exploration serving her well. They had gone perhaps 30 feet through the narrow space when they emerged into another chamber. This one was smaller than the main cave, but Jack could sense open space around them. More importantly, no light from the Apache torches penetrated this far. We can rest here, Ayana whispered. They will not find this passage easily in the torchlight. The opening is hidden by the way the rocks fold back on themselves. Jack sank down beside her on the cave floor, his heart still pounding from the close call. They sat in silence for several minutes, listening to the sounds of the search party in the main chamber. They are looking for our footprints, Ayana translated as voices echoed from the other cave. Naiche is very angry. He says that if the white man has harmed his sister, he will skin him alive and leave his body for the vultures. Cheerful fellow, your brother, Jack muttered. Despite their dire situation, Ayana almost smiled. He is a good man, but he has seen too much death. Too many friends killed by soldiers, too many women and children lost in the fighting. It has made him hard. What about you? Jack asked. You don't seem hard. I am hard when I need to be. But I have also learned that not every white face belongs to an enemy. There have been traitors, missionaries, even some soldiers who showed kindness to our people. They fell silent again as the sounds from the main chamber grew fainter. It seemed the Apache search party was moving deeper into the cave system, following other passages. How long do you think they'll keep looking? Jack asked. Until they find us, or until Nietzsche decides we have escaped through one of the other openings. There are several ways out of these caves, but all of them require climbing or crawling through very small spaces. Jack thought about their options. They couldn't stay hidden indefinitely. Ayana needed medical attention for her ankle, and they had no food or water except what remained in Jack's canteen. But they also couldn't emerge while Nietzsche and his warriors were still searching the caves. Tell me about this grandfather of yours, Jack said. Do you really think he might help us? His name is Kochisha, which means like Cochise in our language. He was a great warrior in his youth and fought alongside the famous chief Cochise himself. But he has always believed that Apache and white men could live in peace if they understood each other. That's a pretty progressive view for someone who's fought against whites his whole life. My grandfather says that a true warrior must be wise enough to know when to fight and when to make peace. He says that endless war only brings endless suffering. Jack found himself warming to this old Apache chief he had never met. It was a philosophy he could respect, especially after his own experiences with the futility of constant conflict. If we could get a message to him, what would you tell him? Jack asked. Iana was quiet for a long moment, thinking. I would tell him that a white rancher found me trapped and dying, and instead of leaving me to die or taking advantage of my helplessness, he risked his own life to save me. I would tell him that this man showed honor and courage, and that he deserves the protection of our people, not their vengeance. You think your grandfather would believe that story? He would believe it because it is the truth, and because he knows I would never lie about something so important. The sounds from the main cave had faded to almost nothing now. Either the Apache had moved to other sections of the cave system or they had given up the search for the night. I think they're gone, Jack whispered. But they will return with the sunrise, and they will bring more men. Nietzsche will not give up easily. Jack made a decision. Then I need to try to reach that opening tonight while it's dark outside. If I can get to the trading post and contact your grandfather, maybe we can end this before anyone gets hurt. It is too dangerous. You could fall and be killed, or you might become lost trying to find your way in the darkness. It's more dangerous to just sit here and wait. Your ankle is getting worse, and my presence here is putting you in as much danger as your brother. Ayana was quiet for a moment, then sighed.
You are right.
But I know these mountains better than you do. I should be the one to go for help. With a broken ankle, you can barely walk, let alone climb out of a cave and hike 10 miles across rough country. Then we must both go. I can guide you to the trading post, even if I have to crawl part of the way. Jack started to protest, but Ayana cut him off. Listen to me, Jack Morrison. If you go alone and become lost, you will die in the desert, and I will still be trapped here when Nietzsche returns. If we go together, at least we have a chance. Jack realized she was right. His knowledge of the local terrain was good, but not good enough to find a specific trading post in the dark across unfamiliar country. All right, he agreed, but we'll need to take it slow and rest often. I don't want you making that ankle any worse than it already is. It cannot get much worse than it already is. Jack felt around in his pockets and found his remaining matches. He had 3 left, enough to get them back to the main cave and hopefully out of the system entirely. Ready? He asked. Ready. Jack struck one of the matches, and the sudden flare of light seemed brilliant after the total darkness. They made their way carefully back through the narrow passage to the main cave chamber. The space was empty now, but Jack could see signs that the Apache search party had been there. Footprints in the muddy floor, the remains of burned-out torches, and scratches on the walls where they had searched every crevice for hiding spots. Jack helped Diana across the chamber to the opening high in the wall. In the matchlight, the climb looked even more daunting than before. The rock was slick with moisture, and some of the handholds were barely large enough for fingertips. "I'll go first," Jack said. "If I fall, at least you won't be dragged down with me." He let the first match burn out and struck the second one, tucking the third safely in his pocket for emergencies. Using the flickering light to plan his route, Jack began the treacherous climb. The rock was even more slippery than it had appeared, and twice Jack nearly lost his hold when handholds crumbled under his weight. But his years of ranch work had given him strong hands and good balance, and he managed to reach the opening without falling. The aperture was indeed barely large enough for a man to squeeze through. Jack had to remove his gun belt and push it ahead of him before he could fit through the narrow space. On the other side, he found himself on a ledge overlooking a deep canyon. The night air felt wonderfully fresh after the stale atmosphere of the caves, and he could see stars overhead. More importantly, he could see a faint trail leading down from the ledge to the canyon floor. Jack struck his last match and held it down into the cave opening. "Come on," he called softly to Ayana. "I'll pull you up." The climb was agony for Ayana, but she gritted her teeth and made it without a sound. Jack had to admire her courage and determination. Many men would have given up long before she did. Once they were both on the ledge, Jack took stock of their situation. The trail down to the canyon floor was steep and rocky, but it was manageable even in the dark. The bigger challenge would be finding the trading post from there. "Which direction?" Jack asked. Ayana pointed toward the north. "Follow the canyon until it opens into a valley, then we must cross 2 ridges. The trading post is in a grove of cottonwood trees beside a creek." It sounded straightforward, but Jack knew that desert navigation at night could be treacherous. Landmarks that were obvious in daylight became invisible in darkness, and it was easy to become turned around. They began their descent carefully. Jack went first, testing each step before putting his full weight down. Ayana followed, using her hands and her good leg to lower herself from rock to rock. The process was slow and painful. Every few minutes they had to stop to rest and allow Ayana to recover from the pain of moving on her injured ankle. Jack could hear her breathing hard with the effort, but she never complained. By the time they reached the canyon floor, Jack estimated they had been traveling for over an hour. At this rate, it would take them all night to reach the trading post. "How are you holding up?" Jack asked during one of their rest stops. "I will make it," Ayana replied firmly. "I have to." Jack wished he had some way to make the journey easier for her, but they had no choice except to keep walking. Every step took them farther from the caves, where Naichi's warriors might still be searching. The canyon gradually widened as they traveled north, and eventually opened into the valley Ayana had mentioned. Here the going was easier, with sandy soil instead of sharp rocks underfoot. "The first ridge is just ahead," Ayana said, pointing to a dark bulk against the star-filled sky. As they began climbing again, Jack heard a sound that made his blood run cold, the distant howl of a wolf. It was answered by another howl from a different direction, then another. "Wolves?" Jack asked. "No," Ayana said grimly. "Those are my people. They are signaling to each other, coordinating a search. Naichi has brought many warriors, and they are spreading out across the entire area." Jack realized their situation had just become much more dangerous. Instead of hiding in caves, they were now in the open with hostile Apaches scattered across the countryside looking for them. "How close are they?" Ayana listened carefully to the pattern of calls. "Not close yet, but they are moving this way. We must hurry." They pushed on, climbing the ridge as quickly as Ayana's injury would allow. Jack had to support more and more of her weight as her strength failed, but somehow she kept moving. At the crest of the first ridge, they paused to catch their breath and survey the landscape ahead. The second ridge was visible in the distance, and beyond that, Jack could just make out the dark line of trees that must mark the creek where the trading post was located. "We're going to make it," but even as he spoke, they heard more wolf calls, this time much closer. Looking back the way they had come, Jack could see pinpoints of light moving across the valley floor, torches carried by mounted searchers. "They have found our trail," Ayana said. "Once they reach the canyon, they will follow our tracks here very quickly. Then we'd better move." The descent from the first ridge and the climb up the second took every bit of strength both of them had left. Ayana was leaning heavily on Jack now, barely able to put any weight on her injured leg. Jack's own muscles were screaming with fatigue, but the sight of those pursuing torches drove him forward. When they finally reached the grove of cottonwood trees beside the creek, Jack was surprised to see lights in the windows of the trading post. He had expected everyone to be asleep at this hour. "Martinez often stays up late working on his books," Ayana explained. "He is not a good sleeper." They approached the building carefully. It was a sturdy adobe structure with thick walls and small windows, built to withstand Apache raids if necessary. Smoke rose from the chimney, and Jack could smell coffee and tobacco. Jack helped Ayana to the front door and knocked softly. After a moment, they heard footsteps inside, then a gruff voice speaking in Spanish. "Martinez!" Ayana called out softly. "It is Ayana, granddaughter of Cochisha. I need your help." There was a long pause, then the sound of multiple locks being undone. The door opened to reveal a short, stocky Mexican man with gray hair and suspicious eyes. He held a shotgun in his hands, but lowered it when he saw Ayana. "What are you doing here in the middle of the night?" Martinez asked in accented English. "And who is this man?" "His name is Jack Morrison. He is a rancher who saved my life, but my brother thinks he kidnapped me. We need to get word to my grandfather before Naichi does something foolish." Martinez looked from Ayana to Jack, taking in her obvious injuries and his exhausted condition. "Come inside, quickly. I can see torches in the distance. Your brother's men are not far behind." They hurried into the trading post, and Martinez immediately barred the door behind them. The interior was cluttered with trade goods, blankets, tools, ammunition, and foodstuffs. A small fire burned in the fireplace, and a pot of coffee sat on a table. "Sit down, both of you," Martinez ordered. "Let me look at that ankle." While Martinez examined Ayana's injury, Jack quickly explained what had happened, finding her trapped under the boulder, freeing her, and being pursued by her brother's war party. "This is a serious situation," Martinez said when Jack finished. "Naichi has been stirring up the young warriors for weeks, talking about driving all whites from Apache lands. If he finds you here, he will not listen to explanations." "Can you get word to Cochisha?" Ayana asked. "Perhaps, but it will take time, and time is something we do not have." Martinez went to one of the windows and peered out carefully. "Those torches are getting closer. They will be here within the hour." Jack felt a moment of despair. They had come so far, only to be trapped again with nowhere left to run. But Martinez wasn't finished. "However, there may be another way. Cochisha is not at the main village tonight. He has gone to the sacred canyon to pray for his grandson, who has been sick with fever." "How far is the sacred canyon?" Jack asked. "About 3 miles, but the trail is treacherous in the dark. Many cliffs and narrow ledges." "I can find it," Ayana said. "I went there many times as a child with my grandfather." Martinez shook his head. "Not with that ankle, you cannot. But," he paused, thinking, "there is one other possibility. I could take the white man to Cochisha myself. I know the trail, and the old chief trusts me." "What about Ayana?" Jack asked. "She stays here. When Naichi arrives, I will tell him the truth, that she was injured and came here for help. I will say I sent you away to prevent bloodshed." "He won't believe that," Ayana protested. "He will if you tell him it is true. Your word carries weight with your brother, even when he is angry." It was a risky plan, but Jack couldn't think of a better alternative. The Apache search party would arrive soon, and there was nowhere left to hide. "All right," Jack agreed. "Let's do it." Martinez grabbed a lantern and a heavy coat. "Stay here and bar the door behind me," he told Ayana. "No matter what happens, do not let anyone in until we return." Jack looked at Ayana one last time before leaving. "Thank you," he said simply. "For trusting me, for helping me. I won't forget what you've done, nor I what you have done, she replied. Go now, and may the spirits protect you both. Jack and Martinez slipped out the back door of the trading post and into the darkness. Behind them, Jack could see the torches of the Apache search party growing closer. Ahead lay a dangerous trail through the mountains, and their only hope of preventing a tragedy. As they disappeared into the night, Jack couldn't help but think about how much his life had changed in just one day. He had started the morning looking for 3 lost cattle and found, instead, a wounded Apache woman who had shown him more courage and honor than many soldiers he had known. Whether he lived through the next few hours or not, Jack Morrison knew he was no longer the same man who had ridden into that canyon at sunrise. Some encounters change a person forever, and his meeting with Ayanna was certainly one of them. The night was far from over, and the most dangerous part of their journey still lay ahead. But for the first time since finding Ayanna trapped under that boulder, Jack felt a glimmer of hope that this story might have a peaceful ending after all.